After over 8 years, the Nintendo Switch 2 is finally here, and I have never seen a console launch with more controversy. But don't get me wrong, a lot of it is deserved, from Nintendo charging $10 for what should have been a manual on how to use your console, to them charging $80 for a game that, while good, could never justify that asking price when some of the best games we have ever seen were $20 cheaper. When you realize that, it becomes evident that the only reason Mario Kart World is $80 is not because it's the best game ever. Other games are better. It's not because it's the most expensive game ever produced. Other games were more expensive. It's only because Nintendo knows that people love Mario Kart so much that paying an extra $20 to experience the next entry is just a pill they'll swallow out of love for the franchise, regardless if it was actually worth that price point at all. The whole pricing discussion and whether it's justified and what implications it'll have is something that's beyond my pay grade, but I did want to bring it up because it's not just a small aspect of Mario Kart World. It has completely changed the reputation of both the game and the console it's launching on. But I do want to put a pin in all that for now to talk about the Switch 2 itself, because I do have a lot to say. And while I do want to make it clear that I definitely have a bias towards Nintendo since I really do love all of their games, I will try to be as fair as possible and point out the downsides that I do see, because there is a lot of them. The Nintendo Switch 2 is just so interesting to me because all the discourse I've seen around it are people either saying that it's the greatest thing ever, it's definitely worth buying, or people saying that it's a scam and no one should buy it, and that buying it will contribute to the downfall of the gaming industry. So there's just two extremes, and I want to try to find something in the middle. It's no secret that I've been looking forward to this console for a long time, long before it was announced, or long before the idea of a successor was even mentioned by Nintendo. I went from Xbox to PC to a little bit of PlayStation and back to PC, so graphical fidelity and frame rates have always been something that have been sort of at the center of my gaming experience. I've become accustomed to sharp visuals and stable frame rates, and the transition between that and whatever the hell this is has always been super jarring to me. I can say with certainty that if it wasn't for the fact that I believe Nintendo simply just makes the best games out of any developer right now, I probably wouldn't put up with it. Yes, graphics are never everything, and pretty much everything else about a game is more important, but Nintendo has always lagged so far behind that it's just really jarring every single time you switch from a game made by a modern studio to Nintendo. And in the case of some games like Echoes of Wisdom, I ended up putting them off completely just due to the poor performance and waiting for a Switch 2 version or Switch 2 update. So my number one hope with the Switch 2 was beyond just getting great exclusives like we've been getting from Nintendo for the last couple years. I wanted a machine that tightened the large gap between other consoles and Nintendo. Of course, I don't expect the level of fidelity that my computer offers. It's a handheld. I don't even expect PS5 performance. It's a handheld. The amount of discourse I've seen online comparing it to a PS5 and mentioning how the PS5 digital edition is only $50 cheaper but the graphics are way better completely missed the fact that it's a handheld. Obviously, the amount of hardware you can pack into a handheld is way smaller than that big ass PS5, but I did want the days of blurry 30 FPS to be done and over with, and in supported games it absolutely is. Now when I'm talking about moving to 60 frames per second, I'm talking about Nintendo's first party games, since they're generally lower fidelity than other AAA games. This isn't a bad thing because games like Breath of the Wild still look great, but this prioritization of art style should mean we get higher frame rates. But despite that, the Switch 2 is still able to run graphically intensive games like Cyberpunk 2077 at a stable 30 FPS with decent image quality for a handheld. The difference between the PC and the Switch 2 version is still wide, but the difference is that now the Switch 2 version still feels like it's worth playing. I didn't think we'd see games running at 1440p 60 on a Nintendo console ever. I honestly expected 1080p 60 at most. Mario Kart World and especially the two Zelda remasters look absolutely stunning on the console and really breathe new life into those two games. This substantial upgrade over the fluctuating resolutions in order to reach a sub 30 FPS that were present on the original Switch makes this console feel like a generational leap in the way that the PS4 and the PS5 didn't. And again, I'm in no way making the claim that this console even competes with the PlayStation 5 visually. It's always going to be a handheld and it's always going to be behind visually. It's just more noticeable because the PlayStation 4 already looked good enough in my opinion. In most cases, barring frame rate, those games still look great today. Whereas in the case of the Switch 1, not only was the frame rate pretty bad, the graphics were arguably worse. The screen is also a big improvement over the Switch 1, being so much brighter and clearer, and even having a 120Hz mode, which we know no game will use besides Metroid Prime 4. It's nice that it's there, but so far I haven't seen a single game use it, and I'm kind of wondering if it was worth putting it in the handheld if no game's going to be able to run it, but we'll have to wait and see. Hopefully more games use it. And with these major performance leaps in mind, as well as the fact that the Switch 2 already feels so much more high quality than the Switch 1 just holding it, game prices aside, I have a hard time not feeling like just a $450 price point for just a console in a vacuum is worth it, especially when we consider the fact that the Steam Deck is only $50 cheaper while offering similar or even worse performance in some cases. And that's still excluding the fact that it doesn't come with a dock in the package. And this is in no way me trashing the Steam Deck. I think it's a great device with great performance for the price. I've had it since the first year of its launch, and I recommend it to any PC gamer to just be able to play your games on the go. I can't put into words how much I love that thing, and I'll continue to use it for years to come. But its use cases are just so much more different from the Switch 2 that the constant advocating I see online to get a Steam Deck over the Switch 2 feels like people being either naive or just rage baiting. In the case of the Switch 1, I get it. I did the same thing. I would tell my friends, just get a Steam Deck over to Switch 1. That thing was a piece of shit that the Steam Deck ran circles around, even while emulating its own games in some cases. But even then, it came with a huge stipulation that you would have to jump through a lot more technical hoops in many cases, and most people just don't want to go through that. Recommending a device that you have to sometimes spend an hour tinkering with to get what you want out of it is just not something everyone wants to deal with. So acting like a Steam Deck is a one-size-fits-all solution to everything has always been pretty silly to me. Most people just want to buy a game and have it work with no extra steps, and that's okay. And I'm glad that the Switch 2 finally offers enough performance to be able to do that reasonably in handheld form without doing a lot of compromises like the Switch 1 had to do. So with all these positive things I have to say about performance, does that mean I think it's a slam dunk from Nintendo and everyone should go out and buy one? Absolutely not. And with most things Nintendo related, it is always their own fault. Nintendo's pricing continues to be nonsensical, and Mario Kart World's price, and especially the Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour having a price at all, is just another chapter in this long story. There's also the fact that the Switch still has no real personality, and the user interface has none of the charm that the previous consoles had, and there are still no themes. Why is there even a themes tab, Nintendo? And even with all the mentions I made about performance increases, Nintendo still found a way to screw that up. At launch, there is only 11 free updates for Nintendo published Switch games to get a frame rate or resolution bump, and is missing several that desperately needed it. Thousand Year Door Remake, Hyrule Warriors, Pokemon Legends Arceus are still locked behind their basic Nintendo Switch visual quality and frame rates when there are mods on emulators that fixed these issues years ago. Not a single Xenoblade game has gotten anything, and you can easily argue that these games were ones that needed them the most. I mean, Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition gets nothing, but New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe gets an update? What the fuck? I mean, I'm glad it's 4K, but who was asking for it? We have Wonder, and that didn't get an update either! Just a simple upscale and frame rate increase would be fine. I know these updates will come eventually, there's just no way they won't, but why are we drip feeding this content? Especially at launch when you want to show people and give people a reason to get the console now. Unless they want to find more useless crap to put into these games to charge money for the upgrades, but I don't even feel like opening that can of worms right now. So with all that being said, do I think the Switch 2 is worth it? Not really. Not for most people and not right now. This is because ultimately no console is really worth buying at launch. Both the Switch 1, 2, and PS5 only had one real launch exclusive, and the Switch 1 really didn't gain enough exclusives in order to justify buying one for a couple of months, if not years. The PlayStation 5, however, is still trying to justify purchasing it to this date. Mario Kart World has been an amazing game so far, and one I'm planning to make a dedicated video on very soon, but that's just one video game. You can't play that game forever, especially not without going insane, so unless you are like me and the graphics are that big of a deal for you, it's probably better to sit this one out and wait for more games to release. Nintendo has done a really good job maintaining stock even through these hectic few days, so it's probably not going to be a PS5 situation where if you didn't get one now, you're going to have to wait a year. I will say with the Donkey Kong game already coming out in a month, and Metroid Prime 4 coming this year, as well as a lot of other games, I think the Switch 2 will quickly build its catalog and beat the PlayStation 5 in exclusives by the end of next month. But I do think the lack of truly new things to do right now is pretty disappointing when they took the longest gap that they have ever taken in between release of new home consoles. The majority of the appeal relies on just Mario Kart and a really small number of graphical enhancements. I do genuinely believe that if I had more than 11 at launch, I could recommend a console right now. But there's just not enough, and unless if the games already appeal to you that are out right now, there's no reason to get it right away. But all in all, my impressions are still overwhelmingly positive where it counts. I'm super happy with the specs. I feel like I personally have a lot of games to play right now. Like I said, I haven't even played Echoes of Wisdom yet, and I'm super excited to play all the games that are coming out soon. Even things like the mouse mode, while they're pretty useless right now, will become super useful when Metroid Prime 4 and Splatoon 4 eventually gets announced and released. I'm truly having a blast with the system, and even recording this video I just think about how I want to go back to Mario Kart and go back to replaying Breath of the Wild. I only wish that Nintendo didn't douse the flames of excitement by being pricks like they always do. So I really hope Nintendo can improve these things. I know they won't. but I hope they will. The Switch 2 didn't need to reinvent the wheel, it just needed to be better than the Switch 1, and it is. In spite of its graphical shortcomings, the Switch 1 is still my favorite console of all time, and I think with time the Switch 2 might become my favorite console of all time also, just because the graphics are good. Before, when I would undock the Switch, I would see the clear resolution decrease from playing docked and undocked, but in this case, when I undock my Switch from playing Breath of the Wild on my monitor and going to bed to play Breath of the Wild, it doesn't visually feel that different. Obviously the resolution is less because I'm playing on a smaller screen, but it doesn't feel like I'm playing a pixelated version of what I was playing before. So for the first time, it does truly feel seamless going from the monitor or from the TV to your bed or outside. And that's really all I wanted, and it's why I'm feeling pretty happy and positive about it overall, even though I don't recommend it to the average person as it stands. But that's really all I have to say for this video, and I thank all of you for watching this longer than expected video. I'd like to hear what you guys think about the Switch 2 and what you are looking to see Nintendo do if you're disappointed with the current launch. It's not perfect, but like I said, if they improve on some things, it could be a lot better. I hope I covered most of the negatives, and I'm pretty sure I did. You know, I looked over all of the bad stuff and I pointed out the things that I thought were relevant. Are we